Thank you. We're now moving on to round 2 of our questions. This one will be a video question taken from a voter on the streets of the city of Frederick. Play the video.
Only concern I have is the Monocacy Boulevard, because on this end of the town, you try to get out of town or try to get in town, in the evenings, it's terrible. So if they do that Monocacy Boulevard, so they convert that traffic around a little bit, it might help.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the question is Monocacy Boulevard. Starting in the second person to lead off from our order tonight was Jason. If you would mind, what is your position on Monocacy Boulevard?
I think we need to complete Monocacy Boulevard. It's something that's been on the city's drawings, in the plans, and in the works for about 30 years. It's going to help drive long-term economic growth for the city. There are some concerns. One is that the city seems to be paying an awful lot of freight, and there needs to be an interchange built at Monocacy Boulevard in 15, and it's not quite clear yet where all of the money for that interchange is going to come from. There is a lot of development opportunity in the neighborhood just west of Monocacy Boulevard. We call it East Frederick, and there's a new group that's begun meeting, organizing, and planning called East Frederick Rising. Their focus is on building neighborhoods that are sustainable, that are walkable. As we develop new parts of the city, as we build new neighborhoods, we should be ensuring that we're building them sustainably. You should be able to live and work and play and go to school, eat and shop within walking distance of your home. We know that the sort of development that we've encouraged over the last 20, 30 years isn't sustainable, and as a city we need to make sure that the sorts of development projects that are coming to us and that we're approving are sustainable. When we talk about getting money from developers or getting public money for big projects like the interchange at Monocacy Boulevard in 15, it's important that we have a mayor who knows his or her way around Annapolis, his or her way around Capitol Hill, and I've spent years working on legislative issues in both places. It's also important that we have a mayor who's good at getting and keeping the relationships the city needs, not just with state and federal leaders who can help determine whether or not we win money for projects, but also local leaders. And our relationship with the county is particularly important.
Thank you, Jason. The next up on our list of candidates is Jennifer.
I support the Monocacy Boulevard project, and I think we should do everything we can to make sure that the capital projects for transportation continue to move forward, understanding that road construction isn't the only thing that drives our transportation network. But it's true that we worked on Monocacy Boulevard, and because of the work that was done during our term, Aldi Foods is located over there, Wells Fargo is there, you've seen the Brickworks relocate there, and that does open up that redevelopment scheme for the south and east side of Frederick. The East Street completion to I-70 is something that Delegate Galen Claggett and I were particularly proud of during our time together, working in Annapolis, making sure that money came through. Working with the federal partners, we were making sure that federal money came to complete the I-70, 270 phase improvements, and we know that'll take another 20 or 25 years. The difficulty that we have with Monocacy Boulevard is exactly what Jason points out. The ticket is currently held by you. The bill is currently held by you. And by pushing this ahead so quickly without all of the funding lined up, without all of the approvals lined up, that's exactly the kind of thing that we walked into 8 years ago. You have to get the approvals, you have to follow the process, and you have to know where the money's coming from. Right now, $30 million, you know, I hate to say it, folks, but we're gonna all be writing a check for that. It does pay eventually, but it has to be lined up in advance. Fortunately, I feel very good about the success rate that we've had. We've had difficulty having the Board of County Commissioners support these projects internally. Maybe we ought to have a better discussion about that when we talk about tax equity and tax differential issues, because the county sure gets a benefit when any development happens in the city. I think that you're starting to realize that too when you look at your tax bills.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes. It's the same way that when 1570 ramp was built to 70 West, it eased the traffic on 40 dramatically so that the locals could actually get in and out, and you weren't dealing with everybody going home to Hagerstown. can't remember what year that was, but I'm sure everybody remembers when you did that. It was fantastic. You can actually get to the mall now in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes. Understand developers are also supposed to be paying for some of the roads. They can actually kick in. You can get them to give you money for the roads, give you money for these interchanges because they want to build the houses on the other side of them. Yes, it's going to cost money. Yes, it's going to take time. But yes, I absolutely think it's something that should be done just to get people around and going back home to Pennsylvania from Baltimore because they are a community.
Thank you. Now to rebuttal time. First up, Jason, would you like to take your 30 seconds?
On transportation issues, I want to add two things. One is that we need to find an alternative for all of those, the 40,000 of us who leave the county every day to work in Baltimore, in Washington, and Montgomery. I was the only candidate who testified in front of the State Highway Administration earlier this year for a transit option down 270, bus rapid transit or light rail. And secondly, we need to make the city more friendly for cyclists and runners. I'm a runner and a cyclist. We need to build bike paths. We need to knit our parks together. We need to make our roads safe for cyclists.
Thank you. Jennifer, would you like to take your 30 seconds?
Well, just a couple of comments on transit. We did the express shuttle, free downtown parking, free out of downtown parking and commuter routes. The idea to extend that to the Golden Mile was always on the books. I've suggested a guerrilla commuter vans that add opportunities for down the road commuters. You know, there's a lot of good options there. I hope you'll go to my website and check it out. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Chris?
I-270 was mentioned. We had a meeting the other day. The fact meeting had everybody there. $4.8 billion. That's not going to happen anytime soon. Let's stick to the local stuff. Let's stick to what's going to benefit us, people that live in Frederick, people that work in Frederick. There are commuters, yes, I understand that, but let's stick to helping Frederick first.
Round 3 of our questions. This is a set question, if you'd like to open up your envelope. The dire economy has forced the city to scale back its budget with predictions of worse to come. Where do you see the city turning to next to further trim spending? And leading us off this round is Jennifer Deabte.
Well, like every good Catholic schoolgirl, I had my list of cuts for the city budget when I went to testify this year. I was concerned that we were not looking far enough in advance about what the economic downturn was going to do to our revenue stream. You know, even as closely as I looked at it, one of the things that I noticed recently was last year there was a $4 million one-time charge in the general fund. So the cuts that they made this year really just kept pace with the actual rate of spending for last year. So I feel a little bit better, and I hope you do too. But I do have about $2.5 million worth of cuts that I would make, and I would try to bring to the Board of Aldermen in January or February, because I think we have to take little things out of the budget. And, you know, I don't know what the definition of crisis is, but I kind of think we're looking at one right now. So simple things like the mayor's fuel fund for the automobile, legal services, overtime, travel, training, not for our police department, but you know, there's silly things in the budget that don't seem to make sense in the general fund. One of the things we also have to be careful about is making sure that we're evaluating our capital projects and deciding what's unaffordable right now, what should be done by the private sector, and understand that maybe some of these things just won't get done. Right now, everybody's talking about a police headquarters. The minimum is $10 million. We tried to get that done, and finances really got in the way. I'm hoping to do something a little more innovative called a city hall at the mall. Come up with a different way to solve one of our overcrowding problems at the police department. The other is, you know, we're probably going to have to reduce positions in city government. We do have the ability to do that, and since I've already made recommendations to reduce city positions once, I'm prepared to do that again. It's not ever pleasant, but as a taxpayer, I think you'll want to see me make the tough choice.